Alright, it's the Culture Man here. Right now, we are going for a double album review. The second review I'm going to be briefly talking about is the new Sophie album, Sophie. So, if you don't know who Sophie is, well, you should do some research first because Sophie is or was one of the most important figures in recent pop history and one of the pioneers and trailblazers of hyperpop. Ever since the early 2010s, she's been making music and she has become extremely influential. If you are a huge fan of Charlie XCX, you should be equally as a huge fan of Sophie. So, Sophie, amazing artist, has released a lot of two very great albums. However, 3 years ago, she unfortunately passed away, which was very shocking and still one of the most shocking news in music in the last few years. So now we have Sophie's self titled album, and this is indeed a posthumous album. And before people throw eggs and banana peels at the screen and say, oh, another grave digging, money begging album just to milk every last drop of her music, you should know that this album is actually put together by her brother, who took the initiative to sort of group a bunch of unreleased songs and leftovers from Sophie's discography and sort of just dump them all together in this one album. So this album is 16 tracks long and it's 1 hour and 7 minutes long, and it's nothing but leftovers, and B-sides, and demos, and half-baked song ideas. So as expected, it's not great. It's not a good album at all. It's just a bunch of unfinished songs that really lead to nowhere, and most of them are incredibly forgettable. Comparing this to Sophie's last album, Oil of Every Pearl's Unsides, which is only 9 tracks long, incredibly concise, and also there's a great attention to the sequencing of the tracks. It's Okay to Cry is a stellar emotional opener, and then the next two tracks, Pony Boy and Face Shopping, are back-to-back abrasive industrial hyperpop face punchers that are just fantastic and shocking. But on this posthumous album, there is zero attention to song sequencing, so it just feels like a bunch of random songs arranged randomly, or at least songs being grouped together, because this is what happens on the album, where a bunch of electronic tracks are grouped together and a bunch of pop tracks are grouped together. So, as expected, given that it is Sophie who produced these songs, there are still a lot of great productions on this album. As expected, there's a lot of groundbreaking minimalism, lots of abrasive beats, lots of catchy melodies and tunes, stuff that inspired Charlie XCX and many other hyperpop artists, 100 gecs, so on and so forth. After a so-so ambient intro, we have essentially a bunch of tracks that just feels incomplete. The track Plunging a Symptome, for example, just sounds like a leftover from Death Grip's government plates. There are a lot of interesting textures on this track, but they never went anywhere. Also, it's important to note that every single track here is a collaboration with someone and features someone, which is probably why this album, not only is it already half-baked, it also sounds more like a mixtape than anything, so it doesn't feel well put together at all. The track The Dome's Journey is this weird 7.5 minute long intergalactic spoken word track. I really appreciate how, I guess, unconventional this is. We have the track Reason Why, Living My Truth, and Why Lies, 3 tracks in a row where Charlie XCX collaborates with BC Kingdom. And the track Reason Why is a catchy little bop. I can totally see Charlie XCX singing on it. But the next 2 tracks, while they're danceable and catchy, they're also pretty inoffensive and harmless and forgettable. We have Do You Want to Be Alive, which is this deconstructed, half-complete electronic track that builds up some groovy house beats in the second half, which is fine. And Coasting off of that, we sort of enter the electronic section of the album. We have Elegance, Berlin Nightmare, Gallop, One More Time, and they're all just little electronic tracks. The track One More Time, however, is a bit more interesting because it features this surreal alien world vibe, which I really like. And the album has a pop finish where we have Exhilarate, which is a bright pop track with distorted vocal harmonies, Always and Forever featuring Hannah Diamond, who, as always, sounds like a robot, and I'm not exactly sure if I'm a huge fan of that, but I do appreciate that she sticks to her own vocal style. And the album ending Love Me Off Earth, which has the steady EDM rhythms and the keyboards that sounds like a phone ringtone. But surprisingly, it has a very avant-garde ending with these squeaky chipmunk vocals that sounds like it came from a totally different song. But yeah, overall, it's not a very impressive album at all. And definitely not a great posthumous album, though I don't want to go into this album with hate, because this is essentially just a bunch of leftovers. Maybe if Sophie was alive, maybe she wouldn't want to release these songs because they are really incomplete. But I guess at some point these songs have to go public anyways. So yeah, I'm just gonna give this album a strong 5, unfortunately. So have you listened to the new Sophie album? Comments below, let me know, subscribe if you want more, and thanks for watching.